Social Perspectives, hosted by J. Gentile Everett, is brought to you by the Renaissance Ministry.
Hello and welcome to Social Perspectives. I'm J. Gentile Everett. The political landscape is definitely changing in our midst. More and more minorities and people of color are presenting themselves to serve in public office. The political zeitgeist, perhaps, has been influenced by the national political figures like Vice President Kamala Harris or U.S. senatorial candidates like Val Deming or Cheri Beasley. The era of African American females to pursue unheard of positions of power in the past are becoming more prevalent during this period, perhaps like never before. This spirit has phoned down to even local elections. Today, we have an experienced law enforcement officer who is a female and an African American from Scotland County, North Carolina, by the name of Miss Sheronica Smith, who is running as the Democratic candidate for the office of sheriff. We'll hear what she has to say about her candidacy in a few moments. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with Sheronica Smith after these messages. Welcome to our first segment of Social Perspectives with Miss Smith, who's running for Sheriff of Scotland County. I want to take this time and thank you for being on our show.
You're very welcome.
It is a pleasure to have you. First, we need to make one disclosure. Ms. Smith and I did not color coordinate our attire for this interview. It just so happened that we both wore black for this occasion. I think it's important for people to know that. I don't know why. But anyway, let's go on. So you're running for Sheriff of Scotland County.
Yes, I am.
And I wonder what makes you so excited about the opportunity of being Sheriff of Scotland County.
Embracing the culture, but also effecting change.
We'll see.
Because there's a negative stigma with law enforcement, and having come from within the system and not a spectator of the profession, you tend to have the opportunity to see areas of improvement and how you can better the lives of even the very officers that put themselves on the line every day.
All right, you've been a law enforcement officer for quite some time, is that right? What experiences have you had along the way that will qualify you for this high office?
For the previous administration, I was the administrative assistant to the sheriff during his last term. In all aspects of the sheriff's office, from start to finish, first one in within the agency at the morning time, last one in the afternoon.
Okay.
Been lieutenant of the lieutenant jail administrator.
Okay.
Have steered all the programs under the previous administration, of course. I've worked patrol. I've done some mental investigations, reference to juveniles, school resource officer under the current administration for 8 years. Learning juvenile laws, how to do petitions, just everything that embodies with that.
It seems like you had quite a bit of experience in law enforcement. I think that would be good if you're going to be sheriff. You need to have some experience in it. I think that that's only fair.
Yes.
But now, we're talking about you running for the office of sheriff, let me throw out some ideas that I think are real. You are an African American female. I'm not even sure if we've had an African American female from Scotland County that's ever run for sheriff before. I don't know that answer. But I would imagine that's challenging in and of itself.
It is.
But why would you say that it's challenging? And then I'll tell you why I think it is challenging. Why would you think that that would be a challenge for anyone?
Because it has never been done before.
I see. Well, you'll be first. I always believe this. If something has not been done before, it doesn't mean that I can't do it. I do admire and I must applaud your effort to even put yourself out there for the opportunity, because I would think historically it is a male-dominated position, and for a female to be interested in that position, and a female who is African American or minority, I would imagine that there's some challenges that come along with that, because there's some things we cannot ignore. The existence of racism itself. We're going to have to continue with it, and it's not just going to magically disappear. So I am sure that that plays into somebody's psyche. The fact that, we've never had it, and she's a woman. Would I want to work for an African American female? That may exist out there. And then being over it, having to make a colossal amount of decisions over which will affect many, many, many people. I just have to say to you that that's a major undertaking. And I want to commend you for believing in yourself and believing that you have what it takes to at least make yourself available for that opportunity. I have to give you credit for that.
Thank you.
I mean, that's not an easy thing to do.
It's not.
That's not an easy thing to do. I have one real question in this segment that I really would love to see, hear what your answer would be. You have a vision. All leaders go into whatever it is they're going into with a vision. What is your vision for the sheriff's department?
Equal opportunity for all.
Equal opportunity. So that would be one of the causes that you would champion.
Yes.
Equal opportunity. I think that's a very noble and worthwhile vision. We're going to talk a little bit more about that vision. I want everybody to stay tuned. We're going to be right back with Ms. Smith, who's running for sheriff of Scotland County, North Carolina. Stay tuned. She has some interesting things she's going to share with us in our next segment.
Hi, my name is Tracy Dr. Williams. I want to take this time to thank you all for voting for me in the primary election for County Commissioner. However, we're not finished yet. We have the general election coming up November the 7th, and I'm asking for your vote. I'm asking that you meet me at the polls. My platform is simple: a safer Scotland County, a healthier Scotland County, and an economically sound Scotland County. I'll see you at the polls November the 7th.
Welcome back to Social Perspective. We have Ms. Smith talking about her vision for Scotland County as the highest law enforcement officer in that county. So we're back again. You were talking about equal opportunity as one of the champion causes that you are espousing and you are about. I think that's a very noble one. While we're talking about equal opportunity, I want to ask you about the vision you have for Scotland County. Do you think it will impact the crime rate that we have in Scotland County?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. How do you think that will happen specifically? Do you have any ideas?
for starters, you have to understand the demographics in which you
Okay, great.
At the same time, you got to be familiar with the area in which you work.
Okay,
So if I have, you can understand the fact that people are very standoffish with law enforcement officers already. With that being said, you have to find a way to reach them. Because as a law enforcement officer, we can't solve crimes without the participation
that's
of the
true,
community.
that's true.
So once we can get them to buy into what we're doing and why we're doing it, and not just to decriminalize or to arrest and just criminally charge everybody that committed an offense, you'll understand, I've gotten more done in 12 years, almost 12 years, with just talking to people,
I understand.
being respectful, being courteous, and being helpful.
Okay,
Once you can get people to buy into that vision, they will realize, you know what, this is not your run-of-the-mill law enforcement officer, because the stigma is already there. There are some people that the communities all over the country feel that should not be wearing a uniform today.
okay,
So we're fighting against several different obstacles already.
okay.
Fighting against your community in which you serve and protect should not be one of them.
I agree with that. And while we're on that, I have to tell you, one night I was up looking at various cities as they were presented online. What were the safest cities and counties in North Carolina? What were those areas that seemed to have higher crime rates? And I think you don't want any dubious distinction attached to the county in which you serve. Nobody would want that. In Laurinburg and in Scotland County, I was reading about the crime rate. And some of the crime rate was violent crime rate. It was not good at all, for sure. I am wondering, are there any measures that law enforcement can take to lower those crime rates? Is there anything that can be done to help our community kind of better relate to each other and get this crime rate a little bit more under control?
I believe it is. One, you have to be vigilant. Two, you have to know your surroundings.
Okay,
Most of the citizens that I've spoken with thus far and over the past few years, they just want to see officer presence.
okay,
Consistently, officers' presence in their area, especially the high crime areas.
okay.
Because it hasn't always been this way.
Right,
At the same time, you want to make sure that when you're handling a situation or you are responding to a call, you want to make sure that as a law enforcement officer, that you're sure of the information that you're passing on to the person who you're responding to.
okay,
And that information must be valid. When people feel that you're just brushing them off or just telling them something to make them go away, they become offended.
I understand.
And they feel at that point, there's no need of me doing this because there's nothing gonna happen.
I see.
And I think the criminals, the ones that are committing criminal offenses, I think they have also plugged into that and has come to the understanding, you know, as long as they don't see my face or nobody talks about it, then I can just continue doing it.
All right, well, I'm glad you brought that up there. Now I'm going to ask you a question that has to do with your internal standards when it comes to guns, gun laws. Do you believe that guns should be available on the street like it is now?
No, absolutely not.
Because it seems like everybody got guns now.
I feel strongly that the stipulations that should be, measures that should be put in place should be followed through.
Okay.
Just because you apply for a government or whatever permits that are out there, we need to have stronger requirements.
That's it. I agree.
We have it on paper,
But is it enforced?
but it's not being enforced.
I see.
Under my administration, you will, if we've had issues, with you or your resident, at your residence or anything pertaining to that particular person that is applying, I would prefer psychological evaluations be conducted. What the problem is in the area, the demographic area in which you live, as to why you're purchasing that gun or that permit to purchase it. Most people, for the best part of it, want it for defense.
Okay.
Some people, in my years of doing it, some people just do it just to see how far they can go with it.
Well, that's
Because there's better guns on the streets than what we have.
yeah, that's really sad. Now I got a challenge you. My challenge is you've worked for at least 2 administrations.
Yes.
And you work at the pleasure of that sheriff.
Yes.
You have worked under this current administration. You resigned to run for this office, or maybe have been one of the reasons, but you had to do it to run for this office, I would imagine. What do you say to anyone who said, all right, you're running against a person who hired you? What would be your response to that?
My response to that was, and my reasons for taking the approach that I took, was not because of an individual.
I understand.
It's because of respect for the office.
Okay.
If and when I become sheriff, if there's anybody under my administration that decides they want to oppose me,
Yes.
courtesy and respect for the office of the sheriff, not necessarily the individual.
I got you.
You come and you say, these are my aspirations. Because the previous administration, one of the questions that he asked me when he hired me, what is your long-term and short-term goal? My short-term goal was I want to learn as much as I can in law enforcement because it was a new profession for me. Long-term was eventually I want to retire here.
Okay. Oh, wow.
And it was 10 years to the day,
Oh, wow.
to the month, when that time came.
Well, now that is an amazing answer. We're going to come back and explore that answer. I know this segment is running out, but hey, I'm coming back on that. I can tell you that. Hey, we'll be right back with Sister Smith, and she's telling us sometimes ambition means to retire the one in charge. We're going to talk about that when we come back.
Hunger has never been more satisfied as it is when it tastes like the delicious Southern cuisines from the Clinton Inn. Here, flavor is never compromised and palate satisfaction always meets the expectation. The weekly buffet features all of the special dishes to which we have grown accustomed. Come dine with us on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays starting at 11 a.m. and enjoy a scrumptious meal at the Clinton Inn in Laurinburg, North Carolina, where food has never tasted so good.
Welcome back to our final segment with Ms. Smith, who has already proclaimed her long-term ambition for the sheriff who hired her wants to retire them. I will always remember that. I tell you, that's going to be an answer that is indelibly etched in my mind. What was that response like? If you tell somebody, yeah, you're hiring me, but my long-term goal is to retire you, what kind of response do you think you received after that?
I think it was positive because he knew it was not targeted personally.
I understand.
But he also knew that I was challenging him to teach me everything that I needed to know,
Okay.
which is why I believe he took the approach at putting me in administration.
So it was a positive thing.
Mm-hmm.
See, most people would have tried to make something negative out of that, and I think that is really wonderful that it was a positive exchange, and it helped move you in some other directions that exposed you to more areas that were involved in law enforcement. So that's a good thing. So you see, everybody, it may appear to have been flippant, but it was not at all. It was a great response to having made that proclamation. Good for you.
Thank you.
Now that's going to help somebody. That's going to really help somebody when they start thinking about what their long-term goals might be. The bottom line is, you were saying it's not personal.
Exactly.
Nothing is personal. Now that's priceless. I wish more people could take that approach. Unfortunately, That's just not our world.
Yes.
Okay, Black Lives Matter. We've heard that term, we know about the movement, and we both embrace it, I would think, and we want to support it in any way we can. When I think about Black Lives Matter, I have to ask the question, do they matter to the masses of Black people? Because we still have a high rate of crime, Black on Black, still very high. Do you find that to be true in your everyday movement in the county where you serve?
Yes.
What do you think is the chief motivator of that?
If we can be honest.
Yes, I hope so. Greed. Wow. Greed. So a people that's already suffering economically want to attack each other because of greed. Does that have anything to do with drugs or anything like that?
Not necessarily drugs, it's more so with why would I go out and work for it when
Well,
I
I can
just
just
going to
say-
take it from someone else?
Oh, my. Well, but see, the problem with that is, how do we as a community, any community, it doesn't matter Scotland County or Randolph County, any other county, how do you really impact that? I mean, can law enforcement be responsible for that? I don't think so.
Not solely
Yes.
responsible, but if we as law enforcement officers engage our community more,
How do you do that? When you say engage the community, what do you mean by that?
engage, get out, be seen, talk to them, sit with them on the porch, play with the kids in the street, participate in youth programs. If you take care of their greatest asset, which is their children and or grandchildren,
Yeah, there we go again. Okay.
you can get people to buy into anything, be it good or bad.
Okay, well then, what activity is there in Scotland County that will lead them, or could possibly lead them from street life to something more positive? What activity that the county has that will bring YMCA's, Boys and Girls Club, those kinds of things, rec centers. What about that? I would think that would have some impact, don't you think?
Well, look at our surrounding counties. They have access to it. It's all about having something and making it readily accessible for our community. We don't have anything. Nobody is putting anything together.
So you believe that county funds should be used, and or state funds, if they're to get it, should be used in
For the
youth programs as well,
Because we've had youth programs before
okay?
that was very vibrant. We
Okay.
had involved them in the school system, and we just went away from that.
Well, what would have given impetus to somebody moving away from something that was working?
That's a great question.
Wow, that is an interesting.
But I would definitely like to reinvent it, but at the same time target that grade level that would be beneficial to it. Because I think before we were doing it to like middle-aged kids, you have to target kids when they're young.
Yes.
So I think it'd be more imperative to target the elementary schools and getting them so that when they transition into middle school, they're taking that with them. And then I've always been a firm believer in teach those that can teach,
Okay.
so that they can then go on and teach someone else.
Do you feel though, given where things are, that the county does a pretty good job with the crime rate, or do you think we are woeful in how we handle the crime rate?
You have to have the officers.
Yes.
But when you're having a high turnover rate, that's why my platform is equal opportunity, because We've always stereotyped law enforcement as a male predominant profession, and we're today, 2000 and current, we're having more females that enter into law enforcement now.
All right.
And what's happening is they're being minimized to a certain plateau.
I see.
And there's no further advancement or growth beyond that because the men, this profession want the men to leave.
Well, you're trying to be an impetus that will change that, and that is a great thing. We're running out of time, but we want to take this time and thank Ms. Smith for being here on our show and sharing her views about what she sees the needs are as Sheriff of Scotland County in North Carolina. Do you have any last minute things you want to tell the audience? Just a few seconds we have left. What do you want to tell them about your candidacy?
Again, I'm a native of this community. We've all talked about change until the sun has set, where it's time to be about change. And I, for one, I am that change for Scotland County. So it starts somewhere and it's starting with me.
All right, well, that's a wonderful close. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you, man.
Really appreciate it. We wish you well in your efforts. I know it will be challenging, but thank God for your effort. We really appreciate that. Stay tuned, everybody, for our closing, and make sure let's recognize those that help us keep you informed about what's happening in your community. We'll be right back. I was reading one day, and I remember running into the phrase, if you think you're crazy enough to change the world, you stand in the best position to do that. I say that because anytime we try to do anything that's an uphill battle and a journey before us, many people try to find a spirit of defeat before they began. I just want to tell everyone, one day Joshua needed the sun to hang in its balance and in its orbit for a whole nother day. God granted that wish, and the sun remained up for 24 hours, and Joshua was able to lead in victory in that battle. I say to all of you, dark may be the night, but do not allow the dungeons of despair to keep you from the mountaintop of hope, because nothing is impossible when one believes. This is our show. We pray that all is well with you. We want you to notice all of those who help us make this possible. Support them. They're doing great things in our community. And until the next time, we'll see you on Social Perspectives. I'm Jay Gentile